Why you feel no motivation after spiritual awakening, the hidden phase. No one talks about, let's be real, spiritual awakening isn't what you thought it would be. You expected clarity, energy, maybe even a new sense of purpose. But instead, you feel nothing. No drive, no goals, no excitement. It's like your inner fire just went out, and now you're floating through life with this quiet, uncomfortable numbness, wondering, what happened to me? You're not alone, and you're not broken. This is a deeply misunderstood part of the awakening process that almost no one prepares you for. You didn't lose your motivation. You outgrew the fuel that used to power it. The hustle, the proving, the people-pleasing. It all came from a version of you that no longer exists. And once the ego starts to dissolve, the drive it created goes with it. It's not depression, it's a sacred recalibration. Your soul is pausing everything on purpose, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The silence you're feeling, it's not a void, it's a signal. Something new is trying to emerge, but it doesn't run on adrenaline. It runs on truth. If you're stuck in that fog right now, keep watching. This phase is not the end. It's the beginning of your real life. You thought the truth would set you free, and in some ways it did, but no one warned you that clarity can also break you. That moment of insight, when you finally saw through the illusion, the patterns, the chase, felt profound. You saw the matrix. You felt the quiet power of awareness. But then, strangely, everything slowed down. Your mind was clear, but your body went limp. The drive disappeared. The spark faded. Not in a dramatic crash, but in a quiet, creeping numbness. This is what no one talks about. Sometimes awakening doesn't ignite you, it empties you. Your sense of direction collapses, not because you're broken, but because the compass you used no longer works. The goals, the hustle, the validation, all of it was built on the old architecture of ego. And now that the illusion has crumbled, there's nothing left to push against. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're in shock. Your system is recalibrating. Clarity didn't destroy you, it exposed what was never real to begin with, and that kind of exposure takes time to metabolize. You don't need to get it together, you need to surrender to the stillness. This isn't the end of your path, it's the sacred pause between what you were and who you're becoming. So if you're in that place, silent, confused, motionless, trust it. You're not lost. You're waking up deeper. Let the collapse happen. Sometimes the soul has to dismantle the scaffolding before it rebuilds something true. You didn't love the grind. You loved who it made you feel like. Important, valid, worthy. Most people don't realize this until it collapses. The addiction wasn't to productivity itself, but to the identity wrapped around it. The one that said, I'm doing enough, so I must be enough. But when awakening hits, whether through burnout, breakdown, or breakthrough, the mask of the high achiever begins to fall, and with it goes your fuel. You no longer feel that urgent pull to prove yourself, to keep climbing, to stay busy, and that silence can feel terrifying. Without the hustle, who are you? Suddenly, tasks feel hollow, ambitions lose their flavor. The checklist becomes just ink on paper, not because you've failed, but because the identity that needed them is dissolving. Burnout wasn't your core problem, it was the alarm. What actually hurts is the ego's grief. It's mourning the loss of the version of you that knew exactly what to chase and why. But here's the truth no one tells you. The death of the hustle identity is sacred. It clears space, not for laziness but for authenticity, for actions that rise from alignment instead of anxiety, for creation, not performance. Let the old self grieve. Let it fall apart, because on the other side of that collapse is a kind of peace you can't hustle your way into. You're not here to be productive, you're here to be real. In the beginning, the seeking felt exhilarating. You read every book, watched every video, chased every spiritual teacher who promised clarity. You filled journals, attended retreats, and lit candles hoping for peace. The hunger to find yourself burned bright. But something unexpected happened along the way. The deeper you went, the quieter it got. Not peaceful quiet, heavy quiet. A silence that didn't soothe, it swallowed. It didn't come with answers, just a strange growing stillness. And that's when the shift began. You stopped trying to fix yourself, not out of apathy, but because some deep part of you realized there was nothing broken. The version of you that thought it needed healing was part of the illusion. You stopped climbing, stopped chasing, stopped doing the work in the way it was sold. Instead, you started sinking into your body, your breath, your present moment, into the murkier layers of self that no teaching could simplify. It's not that you gave up, you gave in. Sinking isn't failure, it's surrender, a falling inward, a descent from mental concepts into embodied truth. This is the part of the journey no one glamorizes, where spiritual fire becomes slow embers. But this is where the real integration begins. The seeker chased light, the soul sinks into depth. You're not lost. You've just stopped paddling and now the current is taking you somewhere real. Let yourself sink. There's wisdom at the bottom. One of the strangest parts of awakening is what happens to your relationship with time. Suddenly, the linear life you were trained to follow, step by step, year by year, starts to fall apart. The 5-year plan? It feels absurd now. The old urgency to get somewhere loses its grip. You stop racing toward the next milestone, not because you've made it, but because the road itself vanished. You're no longer chasing the clock, but you're not exactly resting either. You exist in a strange limbo where days blur and structure dissolves. Mornings don't start with purpose. They start with questions. Your drive softens. Your calendar starts to feel like fiction. Time becomes less of a ladder and more like water, shifting, non-linear, impossible to hold. And that can feel deeply disorienting, because in this culture, time equals worth, productivity equals value. And when you're no longer measuring yourself in hours worked or goals achieved, a quiet panic can creep in. Am I falling behind? But here's the hidden truth. You're not behind anything. You're moving differently now, not by deadlines, but by alignment, not by the clock, but by intuition. This isn't stagnation, it's reorientation. Your soul is detaching from artificial timelines so it can finally attune to real time, soul time, cyclical, organic, sacred. You don't need a roadmap right now. You need trust. You're not late. You're exactly where time dissolves and truth begins. There's a kind of inner panic no one prepares you for, the kind that doesn't come with chaos or loud breakdowns. It arrives in silence, in stillness, in the space after awakening where your old identity begins to crumble. Who am I without my goals? Becomes the question that loops in your mind like background static. You used to define yourself by direction, the career, the achievements, the version of success you carried like armor, but now none of it fits. You wake up and the fire to be someone is gone. Not out of laziness, but because the someone you were chasing isn't there anymore. And it's terrifying. Try to explain it to your friends and they'll worry you're depressed. But it's not that. You're not sad. You're stripped. Something deeper is being dismantled. It's not mental illness, it's ego death. This is what real transformation feels like. Not glamorous, not Instagrammable, just a quiet unraveling, a sacred disorientation. Your roles, your goals, even your language for self, all of it is dissolving. You're standing in the space between who you were and who you haven't yet become, and that space is vast. But here's the miracle. This is where your real self begins to emerge, not built from performance or approval, but from truth. Let the panic come, let the questions breathe. You're not falling apart, you're falling through, and what remains after the fall will be something unshakably real. In a world addicted to progress, we've been taught that growth should always look like upward motion, more clarity, more productivity, more light, but real awakening doesn't work that way. Sometimes growth doesn't explode outward, it folds inward, it contracts, it retreats, it pulls you down into yourself, like roots stretching deep into unseen soil. And when that happens, you might think something's wrong. You feel still, quiet, uncertain. You're not rising, you're sinking. The momentum is gone. But this isn't stagnation, it's germination. Like a seed buried in darkness, your soul is entering a phase that doesn't look like growth, but is. It's preparing, rearranging, dismantling everything that was built on ego so it can rebuild from truth. You're not stuck. You're being asked to stop pushing, because true expansion requires pause. It needs a death before the rebirth. And in that space, where nothing seems to be happening on the surface, the deepest transformation is taking place underground. The myth of constant expansion is seductive because it feeds our ego's need to prove worth through progress. But your soul isn't in a hurry. It values depth over display. So if you feel like you're shrinking, quieting, slowing down, don't fight it. You're not failing. You're fermenting. And when it's time, you won't need to push yourself forward. You'll bloom naturally. But only because you first had the courage to go inward, downward, and trust the dark. It doesn't look like a breakdown. There are no tears, no chaos, no visible despair. Just a strange stillness. A neutral fog that settles over everything. You're not sad, you're just indifferent. The passions that once lit you up now feel distant. The problems that used to stress you out barely register. Nothing feels urgent, nothing feels thrilling. It's not depression, it's not burnout, it's something deeper, something quieter. This is existential flatlining, a state of being few people recognize but many pass through after a spiritual awakening or major life shift. It's the point where the ego has dropped, but the soul hasn't yet taken over. You're suspended between who you were and who you're becoming. And that in-between is quiet, not peacefully quiet, eerily quiet. The highs are gone, but so are the lows. You're not riding emotional waves anymore. You're just floating. And because this phase doesn't come with dramatic symptoms, it often goes unseen, even by you. But make no mistake, this flatline is sacred. It's the nervous system resetting, the psyche clearing old patterns, the soul preparing for deeper direction. It's not apathy, it's recalibration. You're not lost. You're being leveled. Your old identity, old triggers, and old desires are being deactivated so something more authentic can take root. This is the stillness before the pulse, the silence before the music returns. Hold steady. The rebirth always begins in the quiet. There's a space after awakening that no one talks about, not because it isn't real, but because it doesn't sell. It's quiet, unproductive, unmarketable. And yet, it's one of the most vital stages of transformation you'll ever experience. It's called the void, not a crisis, not a breakthrough, just an in-between. A strange stillness where your old identity has crumbled, but the new one hasn't yet arrived. You're not ascending, you're suspended. Nothing excites you, nothing calls you forward, and nothing makes sense. And it's terrifying, because our culture doesn't know what to do with stillness unless it can package it. If you're not chasing goals, optimizing yourself, or manifesting your dream life, you must be doing it wrong, right? Wrong. The void isn't failure, it's spiritual recalibration. Like a computer caught mid-update, your system has shut down the old software but hasn't yet installed the new operating system. You're on life's loading screen. It feels empty because it's clearing space. It feels meaningless because meaning itself is being redefined, and you can't rush it. This pause is not punishment, it's preparation, a womb space, a cocoon. Everything looks dormant, but inside there's sacred construction happening, subtle, slow, soul-led. So if you're here, drifting, uncertain, unmotivated, breathe. You didn't lose your path. You stepped into the gap where real growth begins. Let the void hold you. Stillness isn't the absence of life, it's where life learns how to begin again. One day, without warning, the fire goes out. You stop wanting to hustle. You stop needing to prove anything. The plans, the ambitions, even the dreams you once chased feel strangely irrelevant. And you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? But what if nothing's wrong? What if your soul is running a background update your mind can't see? This is the psyche's secret reboot, a quiet internal recalibration where the old motivational wiring is being stripped away. Not because you've failed, but because you've outgrown the fuel that used to drive you. You're not lazy, you're being repurposed. The system you once ran on, external validation, status, fear of falling behind, is no longer compatible with who you're becoming. Your inner software is being rewritten to run on something deeper. Authenticity, alignment, inner truth. But like any major update, the system has to go offline for a bit. And during that downtime, it can feel like you've lost your spark. You might feel aimless, even broken, but this is not breakdown, it's reprogramming. Your soul is too wise to let you keep running on outdated scripts. So it's forcing a pause, not to punish you, but to preserve you, to upgrade your life from performance to presence. When the reboot completes, you won't be the same. You'll be slower but sharper, quieter but clearer, less driven but more directed. Trust the pause. The new operating system is being installed from within. There comes a moment on the spiritual path when you stop reacting like you used to. Things that once triggered, thrilled, or terrified you barely register now. You're not swinging on emotional highs and lows. You're just still, and people start to notice. They might say you've become cold, detached, indifferent, but they're missing the truth. You're not disconnected. You're discerning. You're not numbing out. You're being refined. This is the misunderstood stage where detachment gets mistaken for disengagement. But real spiritual detachment isn't about apathy, it's about clarity. You're no longer leaking energy into things that don't align. You're not rushing to please, to prove, or to fix everything around you. You're choosing what deserves your inner fire. This is why you feel less emotionally volatile, not because you're broken, but because your nervous system is no longer in survival mode. The volume on drama, performance, and people-pleasing has been turned down, not out of disinterest, but out of inner peace. You're not feeling less, you're feeling cleaner. This is soul editing, a stripping away of emotional noise to make room for signal. And in this quieter space, your intuition sharpens, your boundaries clarify. Your truth speaks louder. It may look like withdrawal, but it's actually evolution. You haven't stopped caring. You've stopped performing caring. So let others misunderstand. Let your quiet feel strange. You're not disconnecting from life. You're finally connecting to yourself. There's a reason going back doesn't work. Not to the job, the routine, the relationships, or even the dreams you once held so tightly. It's not because you're lost. It's because you've outgrown the container that used to hold you. Your old life was built around a version of you that no longer exists. It was structured for someone who hadn't yet awakened, who hadn't yet seen beyond the roles, the rules, and the rewards you were taught to chase. And now that you've expanded, that structure feels tight, confining, hollow. It doesn't fit, not because something's wrong, but because something is right. You're evolving. The architecture of your former identity, your career goals, your social circle, your daily habits, was designed to hold your old self. But once expansion begins, the soul starts pressing against the walls, the container cracks, and when it does, the contents don't collapse. They seek new form. That's what you're feeling now. Not failure, not confusion, just the pressure of transformation. This is the space where reinvention begins. But first, you must stop trying to shrink yourself to fit what's familiar. Stop trying to make an outdated life feel aligned. It's okay if the life you built no longer excites you. That just means you're ready to build something wider, deeper, truer. You're not meant to go back. You're meant to grow beyond. And what comes next will require all the space your old life couldn't hold. There's a particular kind of silence that feels unsettling. Not peaceful but empty. You wake up and nothing excites you. The projects, the passions, even the dreams you once clung to now feel distant. You're not overwhelmed. You're just unmoved. And in that stillness, doubt creeps in. What's wrong with me? But what if nothing's wrong? What if this silence isn't absence? It's invitation. The soul doesn't shout. It doesn't demand your attention with noise or urgency. It whispers, subtle, software. Beneath the mind's chaos and the ego's craving, it speaks in symbols, in nudges, in resonance. And right now, it's asking you to listen when nothing on the surface feels right. It's often because something deeper is being realigned. The old motivations, external praise, validation, survival, are no longer powering you. And that creates a pause, a sacred, often uncomfortable pause. But don't mistake this for failure. This is soul recalibration. You don't need to force clarity. You need to trust the quiet enough to hear what's real. Your new path won't arrive with fireworks or fanfare. It will unfold like a slow dawn, quiet, certain, inevitable. This silence is not a void. It's a signal. It's not here to scare you. It's here to attune you. So be still, be patient, be open. The deeper truth is coming, not with urgency, but with integrity. And when it arrives, you won't need to chase it. You'll just know. So if you've been stuck in that strange space where everything feels still, where nothing excites you, and you're questioning whether you've lost yourself, you haven't. You're not broken. You're becoming. This pause in motivation is not a failure. It's a transition, a quiet, sacred shift where your old identity dissolves and your deeper self begins to rise. You didn't lose your spark. You're just learning to burn from a different flame. And the truth is, you're not alone. Now I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this kind of post-awakening fog? What did it feel like for you? Drop a comment below and share one word or phrase that describes this part of your journey. Whether it's emptiness, peace, confusion, or even floating, your words might help someone else feel seen today. And if this message resonated with you, consider subscribing. Here on Meaning Core, we're not chasing trends. We're decoding the deeper layers of human transformation, one soul shift at a time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being real. I'll see you in the next one.